talk about travel, lifestyle, and mental health. Follow us on Instagram at Sweet Tiffies, Twitter at Sweet Tiffies, Facebook Sweet Tiffies Inspirations, and our website www.tiffany-travels.com. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Where in the Hurt is Tiffany. I am super excited about this video because we are talking about two things that I love, and that is traveling and relationships, okay? So we are traveling to the island of Jamaica, yeah man. And so in this interview, I am talking to three women. There are three separate interviews, and I'm telling you, it is worth your while. So the first one, we are going to title it, Cheats in Peace. What does that mean? Our second interview, we are going to title it Cycling Uphill. What kind of hill she climbing? And then three, we're going to title that Providing for His Family. If you've ever dated a Caribbean, can you even wonder what that means? All right, I hope I piqued your interest enough to check out these interviews. I promise you it'll be worth your time. All right, see you over there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Where in the Hurt is Tiffany. I am super excited. We are continuing the chat about dating men. And on today's topic, we are talking about Jamaican men. So we are going to jump right into this, and we are going to be talking with Santana on today. So Santana, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you or your background.
Okay. Hi, my name is Santana. I am 28 years old. I currently live in Maryland, and that is where all of today's topics of discussion took place. The gentleman that I was involved with, he was older. I think he was maybe about 34, 35, so that's our age group. I am Black. But for the sake of today's conversation, I am going to keep my identity confidential just because I don't want the headache.
Right. And that is perfectly fine. So we are down for it. We just want to hear the conversation. So I'm like super excited to delve into it. And so this video was requested because if you guys don't know, last week we talked about dating African men. So we decided to go to the Caribbean a little bit. So our first guest is Santana. So Santana, let's just jump straight into it. So tell us, like, what is your experience been like with men from Jamaica specifically?
Okay. I had a situationship, if that's what you want to call it, with a Jamaican man for about maybe 2.5 years.
And let's tell us what a situationship is for those people who may not know what that is.
So a situationship is something very similar to a relationship, but you pretty much got some fuck shit going on in that relationship that prevents it from being a full-blown relationship. So it's a kind of sort of situation, which is why I call it a situationship.
Right, and that's a term probably from the Urban Dictionary that we've all accepted because I've heard of situationships. It also reminds me of friends with benefit. Would you say that's kind of similar to the term as well?
For this particular context, this is not a friend with benefits that I'm speaking of,
Okay.
but no, actually, I can't say that. I wouldn't use the term friends with benefits and a situationship interchangeably. A situationship to me is more akin to a relationship. It's not something casual. But like I said, whatever fuck shit is going on in that situation is preventing you and this person from having a full-blown relationship.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, so let's get into it. So tell us more about the situationship.
Okay, so I'll just get straight to it. So this person I found out ended up being married. So him and I worked in the same office. He is 100% Jamaican, born and raised, first generation immigrant to the United States. He was from Brooklyn. He and I worked together in Maryland. And at first, he was like the office flirt. All the girls would say how he flirted and how he would chase anything in a skirt. So I didn't think anything of it. But then one day my friends like dared me to basically try to talk to him and get his attention. And at first he was shy, very respectful always. But a few days later, or maybe a week goes by, and like we exchange contact information. Now, at the time, this man did not ever say anything about a wife. He did not wear a ring in the office. He never mentioned having children. None of that.
Do they
So
ever, though, Santana? Do they ever come out with it in the beginning?
I think some men do. Some men just want to get their dick wet on the side. And some men do say up front, I have a wife, I have a family, so this isn't going to be anything. But sometimes I think there are men out there who want something a little bit more, and maybe they will start a new life or a new relationship, but maybe they don't, or sometimes men are just messy. That's what I ended up learning from the situation. Some men are just messy.
And my other question, you mentioned something about office relationships. So prior to this situationship, would you have even considered something at your job? Because the rule is not to, lay where you eat or lay where you earn your money or whatever the case is. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
I would have outside of this, I would consider an office romance, simply because I know I can maintain my composure at work. And so long as we don't have to like sit side by side, I think I would be okay.
okay.
But yeah, I'm not opposed to an office romance.
Okay. All right. Continue with your story.
Okay, so yeah, this man never mentioned being married, did not wear a ring, did not mention anything about children. And I have former coworkers who can attest to the fact that he never gave the slightest hint that he was a married man. So him and I hooked up, we hooked up, and we did for a few times. And then he tells me like randomly that his wife is moving back in, and I'm just like, she's moving in permanently? He's like, yeah. So anyway, long story short, I
Oh,
ended
okay.
up
Wait. No, wait. I got to stop you right there. Okay. So you were going over to his house.
yeah, I was going
Okay,
to
so
hook up with
okay, so
him.
then he had to tell you that the wife was coming into the picture because you weren't able to just come over there as you pleased anymore.
Right,
And
right. So
he brought up the conversation very casually, like he just mentioned the
he
wife as
did.
if you knew that she existed.
Well, murmurs had started to spread in the
Okay,
office, and I
okay,
asked him about it, and he said, yeah, because we weren't in a relationship. So
right.
I asked him about it, and he said, yeah, that was happening. And I was like, well, is she coming back permanently? And he said, yes. I said, okay, well, that's how the game goes sometimes. That's just sometimes he's secretly married, sometimes he's actually single. That's just what happens out in the street sometimes. So I took the L, and I was like, all right, well, you and I don't have to speak anymore. So I blocked him, but I remained professional at work, and I think it started to drive him crazy. Do you know this man downloaded an app to call me from different numbers because I refused to unblock him? A married man
And
chasing
you
after
got,
me.
and when you went in your working space, were you guys in the same space? Or were it different floors, same cubicle, or how close were you into proximity to each other?
We were in the same space, but our office environment was able to keep us sectioned off by team. He was on
Oh,
a
okay.
different team, but I would see him.
Okay.
However, at the time, we never were in the same meetings. We weren't having the same conversations or anything like that. And then shortly afterwards, I resigned from that job. I got a new one. So we weren't working together. And he did. After I blocked him and tried to get away from him, he put up a fight. And that's kind of where history starts. I mean, he had his sob story about what was going on because the wife and him weren't together when we first met him. So later on down the line, I started to piece it together that they were having a breakup or a separation or something, and he met me during that time period. But what he said he wanted to do ended up not being what he ended up doing, as is the case with a lot of men. So that was my experience with him. In the end, I felt like he was just trying to get his dick wet, like I said, and he wanted somebody to listen to him complain about the woman he had chosen for his life.
To
He
marry, okay.
Yeah, like that's his woman, or and he wants someone to compensate for her shortcomings. So I mean, it was a whole big entanglement because I did have feelings for him, but I mean, it started out with him not telling me he was married. Then he tells me he is married. And sometimes he wants to work it out. Sometimes he doesn't want to work it out. And it just became way too messy. I started putting two and two together and I wasn't getting four. And that let me
But
know that something was not right. If it comes back more or less than four, something is wrong. And
right. that's
I
a, that's
let,
a that's actually a good way to put it. So you feel like for him it was just kind of sex and just for him to be a sounding board. And it's funny when men complain about the women that they're with, do you really believe all of the complaints? Do you think it's just to kind of be like, oh, kind of almost to like put you on a pedestal and her down here? And sometimes, and you can tell me how you feel, like sometimes I don't even know if all the complaints are really real about what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? Do you think that
yeah.
he was lying about any of these things, or do you think it was truthful, but it was just from his perspective?
I think it was truthful. It was just from his perspective because I'm a nosy ass individual and I start putting clues and stuff together. And, sometimes I would tell him, like, bro, you're wrong. And then other times I would tell him, like, nah, that sounds like she's tripping. But I only know it from his perspective. And that was one of the things
Exactly.
that bonded us because we started out having such a good friendship and then it blossomed more as the intimacy came involved. And I mean, some people will call me, hell, my friends and my family do call me stupid about this man. But, sometimes people get married to the wrong person. And I thought I could believe him, but I never ever gave him any type of ultimatums. I never told him he had to leave his family or none of that, but I did tell him that I wasn't going to be on his merry-go-round. So that's what gets me to my transitioning point. I
Right. Well,
think
wait, before we get to the transition point, was the words "I love you" ever exchanged between you two?
Oh yes, he was my full-blown boyfriend. Like this is not a
Okay.
side chick conversation at
And
all.
and with that question being asked, do you feel like men, or you can as a woman, do you feel like we as human beings can love two people at the same time in two separate relationships?
I'm gonna have to take a rain check on that question because I'm still exploring it. I don't know
Okay.
the answer. I don't feel like I've gathered enough information or explored enough about myself to give you a genuine answer. I don't know. I'm asking myself those same questions.
And I love your honest opinion. I'm glad that you're not trying to answer just for the sake of this conversation, but actually really telling me the truth how you don't know yet. So that is something interesting for you to explore. And I look forward to hearing, because I'm definitely going to follow up with you and be like, hey, girl, like, what's going on? So
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear after you do further explanation, like where you come up or what you think about that. Okay, so you talked
Okay.
about your transition. So go ahead and tell us about the transition.
Um, in due time, I came to realize that, like I said, he just wanted to have a safe space to complain about the life he had chosen for himself and to also compensate for with whatever wasn't going on at home with me. So, in my experience with Caribbean men, because his father was the exact same way, I think they genuinely want to cheat in peace. Like they really think they should be able to run around and do whatever and cause all types of mayhem, and no one is supposed to check them on their shit. Eventually, he told me that yes, he did want to be with me and have a family, but he basically wanted me to be like his second wife. And I asked him if he had started sniffing cocaine and I didn't know it. I was I was like, "Have you lost your motherfucking mind? Like, do you really think I'm gonna be your second wife so you can do the same shit to me?" I was like, "No, you doing some type of drugs that I don't want to be involved in."
Right, because
So,
you do look at it. If he done this to me, can he do it again on me? Like, you know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes,
Um, and I feel like we all know about karma. Like, you know what I'm saying? And in the beginning, you didn't know, or she wasn't involved, but now that you know, and him asking that, yeah, you like, are you on something? Like, what are you talking
yeah.
about? I'm not about that life. You know what I'm
And I
saying? So,
also I also think this experience gave me like a real life perspective into other women's lives, because it's not like his wife didn't know about me. Like eventually, like I said, it became a full
oh, she
blown
did know about you. Okay.
yeah, it became a full blown entanglement. You know what I'm saying? Like and I really felt like she either was plain stupid or she just genuinely did not want to know. And I think any woman with common sense or decency, after you see a man close up like that and you see how he operates and what he says just to be able to get away with the shit that he wants to get away with, it ultimately becomes unattractive in a partner. And like I said, I couldn't even respond to that conversation. Like the audacity for him to think I would be his second wife. He told me like
And wait,
he
and did he also bring up this same subject with her as well?
no, probably not, because she'd have knocked all of his teeth loose. Probably not.
And
He
so
gave
you all never met though before, but you said she knew about you, but you guys never like met in person or anything like that.
no, we did meet. We
Okay.
did meet. Yes, we did. This was before him and I messing around kind of came out, because he was struggling with it. One moment he wanted to tell her, the next moment he didn't. One moment he wanted her to leave and go back to her family's house, but then the next minute he didn't. And throughout it all, I think there was some sincerity there that he was actually going through something as a person. And I tried to be there for him. I wanted to be his friend. I thought, he would come out on the other side like a different man, and that's where our life would begin. But it isn't. He changed his story several different times. The target moved several different times, and eventually it just started to look like he wants to be able to cheat in peace. He wants to keep the wife and the family he has at home, and he would like to add to it. Based on
Right.
what he told me, he would like to go explore different vaginas, for lack of a better word. But
Okay.
but
So
he
basically, I like you said, I love that you said the cheat in peace. I'm just assuming this guy he didn't know what he wanted basically, and in the
mm,
process, he brought you along for this journey, whether it be good or bad, based off of what he did, based off of him being confused about himself and his
yep,
relationship. And like you said, he probably was never going to give her up, even though he claims he didn't like her, he wanted her to go back, but he also wants to keep you around. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And I'm glad it eventually came out, because then you be able to say, okay, now I can make the decision as to whether or not I'm going to be around for this foolishness, or
right,
I'm going to leave it alone. So I feel like I'm glad it all came out, because then you have the choice to be like looking and examining the whole situation. You're like, okay, this situation is not for me. Like
yeah,
I think we have enough drama in our lives without adding additional drama for the
right.
sake of love or for the sake of a relationship.
Agreed, agreed. You speaking on something a little bit heavier that I talked to my therapist about, but long story short, I told my therapist I have enough drama in my own life and my own family that I can pick from. I don't need to go pick up a man and his wife and his two children because he's
Okay, so
having a midlife crisis.
okay, I'm glad you touched on therapy. So tell us a little bit about therapy. Were you already in therapy for just for the sake of being therapy, or was this something that you had to do? And I think it's important to talk about this because I feel like in the Black community, I feel like we don't seek therapists as much as we should. There doesn't need to be a mental illness. There doesn't need to be something super traumatic. I may just need to go to a therapist just to talk, and that could be including relationships, so that our therapist can help us examine different things maybe that we can't see. So tell us a little bit more about that, because I think this is something good to talk about.
I started going to therapy prior to this entanglement with this Jamaican man,
Okay.
for my own reasons, and I just kept up with it. My need to go to therapy is oftentimes exacerbated by the relationship that I'm having at the time.
Okay.
I was very open about me being in therapy throughout this entanglement with this man. And I even encouraged him on several occasions to go to therapy for himself. He said, no one ever tried to take him to therapy when he was younger or even before, because he's in his mid 30s. So he was open to going, but I really had to like stay on top of him about going. Whereas for me, at the time, I had a standing appointment with my therapist. I definitely think seeking out therapy is taboo, especially with the older generations of Black people.
Right.
But as millennials, as we're aging and progressing, I think that stigma is starting to be removed and more of us are seeking it out. Couples therapy, family
Right.
therapy, individual therapy, it's helpful.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. And we talk about the rates of suicide just alone, like in the last 2 weeks, and that tells you how important seeking out a therapist is. I always say, I literally had a shirt made in the Black community. Church is very relevant, and so some people say, oh, I just pray or whatever. And while of course I'm a firm believer in prayer, I have a shirt that says you can see God and the therapist too.
Yeah.
Like you can do both at the same time, and like it is completely okay. So
That's
I'm
a
glad
good one.
that you mentioned that, and glad that you encouraged him to go. Whether or not he took the advice or not is a different story, but the fact that you encourage him, and it seemed like he seems to appreciate that aspect about him. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's good to touch on. So let us know. This was like I really enjoyed this interview. So if you had advice to anybody, either we talked about therapy, dating a Jamaican man, we talked about office relationships, we talked about just purely what they're in the relationship for. What advice would you give to somebody that either is maybe in your similar situation or thinking about dating a Jamaican guy? Like, what would be your advice to them?
Um, for a person wanting to date a Jamaican man, I say go for it. It is fun.
Okay.
What people say about Jamaican men behind closed doors is absolutely true. It is a wonderful experience. But I want to say something for the side chicks of the world, if you will. I truly think side chicks get a really bad rep, like in open conversation. People rarely take the time to look at it from the other person's perspective. And if I could say something to all the women, hell, and men who are doing it in life now, I would say just stay concentrated on what you entered into this arrangement for. What is it that you want to get out of this? What are you exposed to anything? Or do you have any opportunities? Are you able to live life on your own schedule? Like, what is it that you're doing? But absolutely not. Do not become entangled with a married person because you love them. Don't do that. That's a setup for failure. Don't do that.
Right. I think that's good advice. I'm going to go back to something else you said. You said what other people said is true. What are people saying that you feel is true?
Oh, about Jamaican men and wait, how explicit can we be? I mean, I've already let a few curse words fly.
Okay, because I don't know who's going to view this. So give us the PG version, but you can still talk about it.
Okay, I'll use the grown-up words.
Okay.
The legend is true about Jamaican penis. It
The size.
absolutely is. Yes.
Okay.
Depending on the age of the Jamaican man, he may or may not be with some freaky shit. Mine was not always with it, but I could coax him to try. A lot of them are not open to oral sex. This was not my first boyfriend from the Caribbean, but
Okay.
all of them tend to have that in common. They're not really open to doing it, so you gotta warm them up to it. This guy in particular, he was really clean. Like everything about him is really clean. So when it comes to that, yes. And what's the other thing? The partying, the dancing, the culture, the everything. It's lit, but you'll fuck around and get your ass burned up if you ain't careful with all that litness. That's all I gotta say.
And on that note, this was super fun. And I am sure that people are going to enjoy this interview. I mean, I have fun with it, so I'm sure. What'd you say?
Nothing. I'm just laughing. Laughing.
Yeah, I'm sure that they are going to actually love this interview. And so I'm excited to put it out there. And so thank you so much, Santana, for coming on. You are welcome on if we were talking about other Caribbean men anytime.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Peace out. See y'all later.
We go viral.
Welcome back to Where in the Herd is Tiffany. We are interviewing women who have dated Caribbean men and even more specifically Jamaican men. So we have our next guest and we have Sheila. I'm excited to have her on. So Sheila, I'm just going to let you introduce yourself and then we'll get straight into the interview.
Wow. What do you want me to say? I'm Sheila Johnson. I live in Sacramento, California, and I love the crazy Jamaicans.
Well, that's a great intro right into it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about, have you been traveling back and forth to Jamaica? Are you meeting, like, where are you meeting these men at? Is it in Jamaica or are you meeting them in Sacramento? So we'll start right there.
Okay. I've been going to Jamaica for the last 15 years. I started going every July to go to Reggae Sumfest, and then 9 years ago, I went there for a cycling. I do triathlons, Ironmans, different little activities like that. And I went on a cycling tour called, what was it? Reggae Ride, the Reggae Ride. It was a 5 day bike ride through Jamaica from Negril to Port Antonio. So I met.
All on bicycle?
That's right. We cycled for 5 days through Jamaica.
Oh, that's
So
super cool. It's funny you mentioned cycling. I'm getting off track for a minute, but I took a bike tour through New Orleans and it was only like 2 hours and my butt was killing me. I was like, what the heck was I thinking? So the fact that you did this for 5 days, like kudos to you just based off of that. So you're a cyclist, so that's super cool that you go to Jamaica to do that. Okay, that's cool. I like that.
Yes. So I like I said, I had been going to Jamaica already, went for this cycling thing, and met one of my I met all the tour guides, but one of the tour guides was, we didn't really click because they had a stereotype about American women. We were only there for, can I say it like this? We're only there for the dick. And I was like, no, I'm here to ride because I came as a single woman.
Right. No, but you said ride, and you mean ride a bicycle.
Ride a bicycle. Oh, but I got you. No, a lot of the other guys, the tour guides were like, yeah, we know why you American women come. You come to ride, basically, like you just said, ride us. And I'm like, boy, please, I'm here to ride my bike and learn and be in Jamaica because I love Jamaica. So,
but that's interesting because it's funny because I feel like people say that we stereotype Jamaicans or Jamaican men. And it's funny that I didn't realize that they had that stereotype of us as well.
Oh, yes.
I've never heard that before. Okay,
oh, yes.
So that's interesting. Okay, keep going.
Okay, because also being a cyclist, I'm around a lot of cyclists, so that I've learned about their thoughts on women, especially us American women, from them as well. So because they'll sit around and men anywhere talk when they're in a group. So, and Jamaican men don't hold anything back when they're all together talking. And especially as an American woman, I'm listening and I'm like, wow, so that's what you think about us. So
Right.
they have a stereotype. So it's all good. It's all good. But anyways, yeah, we met. We pushed me. I was called push cart. That was my cycling name. It was push cart because I would give up riding and they would have to push me over mountains because Jamaica is not a joke in cycling.
Yeah, okay.
Plenty of hills, so they were pushing me over the hills, and they started calling me push cart. And you just start talking to people. Well, we start talking and getting to know each other a little bit more, and that was about it. Yeah.
Okay. So that's super interesting about that particular conversation. Okay. So you were cycling, you finished your race, I'm assuming. And
Yes.
so after the race, who did you meet up with, or how did it start where you were starting to date or even look at Jamaican Men? Because you say you were there for cycling, but did something else transpire after the cycling was
Ah.
done?
Well, 2 days later, I stayed in Ochos Rios, and 2 days later, he came to visit me, and we just walked around the town. He took me on, just walking, talking around the town. Told me about his family, told me about his life, um, and we just started talking from there. And 9 years later, we're building a house together. He's been back and forth to the States, and that's
Okay,
about
so
it.
let's a little bit before that. So as a tour guide, how common is it for tour guides to meet and date women while they're doing their job?
It's common because actually somebody else on the tour, it was actually a white couple from South Africa, and she had met her husband on where was she? I think she was on a deep sea fishing trip and she met her husband. So it's not like uncommon, and it's not just it's everywhere, and I was really
Right,
kind of surprised, and
right.
they
Yeah,
they've been together.
that is definitely a common occurrence because I know a couple who he was my tour guide in Africa. And yeah, I connected them and she took a tour with them and it resulted in a marriage.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it is definitely very common. So y'all watch out for y'all tour
Exactly,
guide.
exactly, and not everybody's out there looking for that,
Right.
and I think
Right.
that was the biggest the biggest thing I even battled today because when the people find out how we met, and I'm like, it wasn't just about that, and he wasn't just trying to get here because he would rather be in yard anyway, so we do go back
Okay.
and forth.
So after this, you guys begin to communicate.
Hmm.
And so you said that he's been back and forth to the States as well. So did he already have like a visa to come to the States, or like what was that all about? Like how was he getting back and forth? Because I know it's hard sometimes for people that are non-American to get back and forth into the States.
Well, he did his visa on his own.
Okay.
Maybe two years into our relationship, he did his visa. I didn't have anything to do it because he didn't even tell me he had done it because they get denied so many times, and it's kind of like you don't want to tell anybody until you know for fact. So he didn't tell me until he had it because he had been trying before I had met him. He was actually a pro cyclist for Jamaica, so he had traveled the Caribbean and Cuba and different, but not the United States. So he had already been traveling, but he just had never came to the States.
Okay, and so that's interesting because what do a lot of people say? Oh, they just want you for the green card, they just want you for
Yeah.
the visa. And in your experience, you were not a part of that process,
Mm-mm.
which normally, guys will say, hey, I want to marry for, this, or they may not tell you, and that's what they want as well. So that's interesting that he was able to get it on his own. So was he able to get like a tourist visa or business visa?
He got a tourist visa which
Okay,
is good for 10 years. Hmm.
So he's good in that he was able to travel back and forth. Okay, that's
Hmm.
cool. Okay, so let's talk as the relationship progress. What are you guys thinking about now? So you guys have been 9 years in. So is the next step marriage? Is the next step you guys are just gonna stay like boyfriend and girlfriend? Like, where do you see this like actually going?
Well, like I said, we're building a house together
Okay.
there. The problem is, I mean, I've been married before, and I don't know. I don't know. He wants to be married, but he always says he needs to be able to take care of everything, that man thing. So he
Right,
doesn't
right.
want to marry me and it'd be like I'm taking care of him. So, yeah.
Okay, but you guys are building the house in Jamaica. What city in Jamaica are you guys building the house?
In Montego Bay.
Okay, Montego. So are you guys gonna stay there? Are you guys gonna rent it out? Like, what do you guys plan to do with the house?
Just everything, anything and everything, it can be income when we're not there. Um, and then when we're there, family wants to go there, they can stay there as well. So,
Okay, so that'll be cool. And so, how far are you along in the house building process?
oh, we're basically at the cosmetic. We built it from the ground up. So it's a 3 bedroom, 3 bath.
Oh,
We're at the cosmetic part where with painting, tiling, and I don't know if anybody's ever been to the Caribbean or even Mexico. It's always a work in progress. So
okay.
always, and he'll look at the house and go, "No, we need to add this, add some steps, everything." Does it all.
Okay, and so
We've been
how
doing it.
so for people that want to buy property in Jamaica, like how does that go? Like, is it expensive to buy property? Is it like different because is it I guess my question is it in both of your names? Like as an American, how easy is it to obtain property in another country?
Oh, it's easy. It's in my name. You own it straight out. You can pay
Okay.
cash. You can do the financing. You can do whatever. I just paid cash. Uh, no big deal. Just for a little lot. No big deal on the house. I think I've spent over maybe 50,000, if that. And we've been
Okay.
working on it for 3 years. So,
Okay, and that gets you your plot, and then you're able to go forward and like you
hmm
said, building and construction and different things like that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's super cool. Okay, so then let's talk about like what is it like to date a Jamaican man? So if somebody's like, "Hey, girl, I want to date a Jamaican man," please let me know. So tell us about like. So I guess when I'm dating and I do like African and Caribbean, like okay, let me say that it's something about an accent that I'm like, we'll just
That
keep
part.
talking. So with that being said, what are some like cultures and custom that he has that was like super interesting to you, whether it may be the food or the dancing or just something like tell me some of those customs or those cultures that you've been introduced to.
Of course, he likes his food, so he cooks even when we're here. Like I can cook breakfast, I can do pancakes, I can do every now and then spaghetti with meat sauce and everything, but that's not his thing. So he always cooks. Um, what was interesting, like when I was on my period, it was my time. He wouldn't sleep with me or anything for like 7 days, and that'd be your time, and he would nothing, leave you alone. Really. So that was culturally for him.
That's okay. Wait, before we jump into that, because we need to stay there for a second. Let's go back. Let's go back to the food though. What types of food does he cook that are, that's a common Jamaican staple or meal that's in the house?
Oh, they love the rice. They love rice, fish, steamed fish,
Okay.
um, brown stew chicken, brown stew fish. What else? They do the mackerel. I don't really care for it. The jack mackerel along with uh, callaloo. Not
Okay.
a fan. And okra. I'm not a fan. I'm
Yeah,
from the
I'm not.
south,
I'm not
but I'm
a big
not a
fan
fan.
of okra. And what about our famous jerk chicken? Anything jerk?
You know what? Not really. That's not a main. That is a it's barbecue basically, but it's not what you would cook on a daily basis. That's not what we eat on a daily basis. It's chicken, curry chicken, brown stewed chicken, chicken with gravy, just a variety, more chicken than anything.
Oh, okay, so more of that, but not necessarily jerk because I think when we think about Jamaica,
Mm-mm,
we think about all things jerks.
mm-mm.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, so that's interesting as well. Okay, well then let's move on to our and I love jerk chicken. I love the jerk wing. Sometimes the jerk be so hot. I'm like I
Spice.
need some water.
Mm-hmm.
I need something to go along with that. but I love the rice and peas, and I just love having that jerk sauce like over my rice because the
Yes.
rice and peas, they're honestly, even though I like rice and peas, it's honestly dry and it's honestly not too much. So you really need that sauce to kind of go over it. So that's interesting. Okay, let's move on to something else because you mentioned something, and that's very interesting. You mentioned because there are some people or some customs or cultures where if a woman is on her menstrual cycle, like they're like, nah, like I'm not touching that at all. Whereas some guys, and I don't know if it's I can't say about Americans, but I don't know if it's an individual thing or a culture thing, so you can answer that. Some men are like, I don't care, whoop de whoop, like I'm still doing what I'm doing. But in some cultures, like maybe like Islam or something like that, yeah, they don't touch you if you're on your menstrual cycle.
It's a cleanse. It's supposed to be your body's cleansing itself, so you're not supposed to interfere with any of that. So yeah, it's culturally, yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, and then on the flip side, if you are not on your menstrual cycle, are what they say, there's rumors about Jamaican men. There are so many rumors flying around. You're like, is it true or is it not? Are they just saying these things? Like, I don't know. So tell me, is it true what they say?
It's true what they say, and it was funny. I had this conversation with a younger white female coming back from Jamaica this time, and we were because I used to say that I used to tell them all my little Jamaican friends. Well, even now when we're having conversations, I'm like, you guys have sex like a bunch of rabbits. You're hitting it hard. We don't like it hard. Slow down. I don't know who told you that was good for it. It's not okay. Slow down, because they're I don't know. There's something about them. And she said the same thing. She said the
Okay,
same
okay. You
thing.
guys agreed on that particular topic.
Hmm.
Okay.
Until you teach them. But with anything, you teach
You
people
have to
what you like.
exactly. And what about romantic? Are they romantic or not so much?
You know what? It's little things. Because I remember when we first started dating, we had went to a maroon festival up in the country, up in the hillside. And everything in Jamaica starts late. Their parties are late night, like into the early morning. And I wasn't used to that. And it had gotten cold and I had on sandals and he took his socks off and put them on my feet. And I'm like, wow. And it just like, I'm like, would an American man have done that? Gave up his socks. And I didn't say nothing. And, I wasn't, oh, I'm cold, I'm cold. And he just looked over at me and he was like, and he started taking his shoes off and took his socks off and put them on me. And I was like, wow, no one's ever done that. So
Right.
who would have thought?
Like you said, it's the little things. So maybe it may not be like, oh, I'm gonna take you out to a fancy dinner and get roses, but like some of those practical, maybe sweet little things that are like, oh, okay, I can kind of see like where this is going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's nothing. I won't say like I get flowers or anything like that. He tells me he loves me by he's building this house. He washes my clothes. Everything's hand washed. He cooks dinner. Even if he's worked all day long, he still cooks. It's just like little things like that. And even if I'm mad at him and I have my moment and I'm like, we go bad as women. So and he'll go okay and he'll still do everything for me as when I'm mad I'm like fuck you, I'm not doing nothing for you, you're the last on my list, I have no thoughts on you. But it's not like that with him, and
It
it's
doesn't. Okay.
different.
And that is sweet, like you said, because if we go hard in the paint and they're still able to do those things, like that is like super, super nice. Okay. And then tell me how it is being long distance because you guys are not always in the same place, correct?
No, we're not. No.
Okay, so how does that work in terms of having a long distance relationship? Like, do you ever think about because there's also rumors about Jamaican men. There's always somebody back at home, and there's another person over there. So how do you deal with like the trust factor one, or whether or not he could be out there cheating or whatever? So fidelity or infidelity. So let's talk about that. Like, how do you deal with that being long distance?
Oh, I'll tell you this. I was married to somebody in the Navy and I have 3 kids by him, and he did what he did while we were married. So I tell people that to say it happens, things happen. And with
Right.
him, I always tell him, I always like, if you get another broad, make sure she buys us a big toilet, a sink. Let's pick out some stuff for the house. If you feel like You need another woman. Make sure we're all capitalizing on this. No, but honestly, um, I I can't let that get in my mind. He's more jealous than I am because I'm like, I think I've come to a place in my life from what I've experienced. People are people, doesn't matter where we're from or where we came from. Our insecurities, our feelings are our feelings, and we're going to act on them the way we do. And if someone pops up and is, he always tells me if he's not with me, she's got to be 100 times more than what I am, and all his friends are going to tell because I am on a Facebook page, and that's all they talk about is how they're all, and it's a hustlers and something, I forgot the name of the Facebook page, but they're always talking about, yeah, they always have other women, they always have another baby's mom. And I know with him, he has he has 5 kids, all by the same woman, and they were together from 13 to till they're young, from him being 13 till their late 30s. So I know he has, everybody has a past, but
Right.
I know his kids who are like the same age as my kids. So
So
I know his family. I can go into his community, and a lot of women will say, yeah, they'll bring you into their community, but everybody knows you're a foreigner, so he can still have another life, and everybody will still treat you good when you're there. And I'm like, but flip the script. I can do the same thing here at home. I can
right.
have my own life here. So you just got to trust yourself and what do you really want,
Right.
in
And,
this
oh, I was
relationship.
gonna ask. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was gonna ask, like, how do you get along with his family? Like, is everything cool? But I'm glad to see that you get along with the kids. So, how is it like, mom or dad or brothers or sisters? Everybody just kind of accepts you when you're down there.
Oh yeah, he has 5 brothers, he has 5 kids. I've met all of his kids. I've met his brothers. I've met his friends. And again, we cycle, so I know all the community. So I
Oh,
would have a harder time being there without him than him.
right, right, right. Okay. And so, how do you keep because you guys, and I don't know, how often do you guys go? You go there, he comes here.
I was trying to go there every 2 months and stay for a month. And then, so every 2 months I was going. And then he comes here for 6 months. He'll come here for the 6 months, six
Okay.
months, go back. And it's a hit or miss, or when he comes back, it's pretty much up to him on what he's doing over there. Once we started building the house and COVID hit, when COVID hit, he was stuck. I call it stuck because good Lord, there's nothing like somebody that isn't in their own home during that COVID time. And everybody's thought was, I'm gonna die, so I want to go die in yard. That was the biggest thing. So he
Uh,
was here from January to July, when COVID struck. So, and he hasn't been back since because we really started working on our house then.
Okay, so he's probably more focused on the house. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, so what advice would you give to someone that is dating a Jamaican man? Like, what is your, like, because people are gonna be like, okay, this is your story, but how do I navigate this? So what advice would you give to another woman that's dating a Jamaican guy?
Know what you want going into it. If it's for the sex, the fun, you or do you want a commitment that changes up the dynamics of everything. And there is culturally, because we are American and we're used to what we're used to having, and the stereotype everybody has about we're all rich or whatever, we have money coming out of our butts, whatever. And I
That
always tell them, we live a different lifestyle in the sense that I have to go to work every day. I'm obligated to it now because of my lifestyle. I owe more because of my lifestyle. Whereas you're more free. If you don't feel like going to work today, you don't go to work. If you don't feel like dealing with people today, they don't deal with people today because they don't have the same obligations that we do here in America. In my opinion, it depends on who they are too, and I always who know who you're dating. And that's the same thing I tell people here in America. You don't know who you're dating. You got to get to know people. And is this person really going to show them their true self to you? And are you showing your true self? because being on vacation and dating somebody,
It's
so
different.
quote unquote, it is, then living with somebody, having them in your space and you're in their space and you're dependent on them. Like when he's here, he's dependent on me. And like one of my friends told me, she's African, and she had to tell me her language of love is different than what my language of love, because culturally how she grew up, and the same for him. So she, as a female being raised in America, gave me a different perspective on him, because I was so hell bent on, oh, I don't want to get used by this person because everybody says they're only out to get this, that from me. So it is, you have to, I guess the bottom line is you have to decide what you want out of your relationship with them. And there was a video about dating a Jamaican man, and it was kind of a parody on it, like the poom poom fat and stuff like that, and we laugh about it, but they do pay you more attention than you might have gotten at home, and tell you look good. I mean, you can be walking down the street and I'm looking the tore up as in somebody, oh, Rasta, you're beautiful. You're like, ooh, but
Right.
they're easy to give strokes. And it doesn't mean I want to sleep with you, want to be with you. One of the things I have learned about being with them is they're nothing is sacred. They talk about everything. And I do appreciate that. Whereas we were taught to more hide our true selves, but everything's open there. It's all
Right.
fair game.
Hey, this was absolutely fun. And it was great because your story is different from the other stories that I'm doing. So I would like to thank you for sharing your perspective. You have a very unique situation as well. So thank you so much, Sheila. This was
Okay.
fun, and I can't wait to. And we needed to do this again. We may have to do it again because this was great. I can't wait to see your follow-up story about the house and to see where the
Okay.
relationship continues to grow and different things like this. So this was fun. So
All right. Thank you.
thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone enjoys it as well. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Where in the Herd is Tiffany. As you know, we are talking about dating Jamaican men. So I'm super, super excited to have our next guest, which is Kayla. And we're going to talk about, her relationship. And I do want to preface these videos to say that we are not speaking for all Jamaican men. Of course, we're speaking to 3 different women with 3 different experiences. So I don't want you to take this as anything more than that, okay? So let's go ahead and let's get straight into it. So Kayla, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing wonderful. So I'm super excited about this topic, and I'm super excited to hear about different perspectives, right? Because we all got an experience. And so we're going to just jump right into it. So let us start off. What has been your experience dating Jamaican men? Let us know.
So this is actually my first Jamaican man I've ever dated. I've only dated American men before this. I've dated African American men, I've dated white men, I've dated Puerto Rican man, but I've never dated. Well, actually, it was mixed. It's Puerto Rican and black, but I've never dated a Jamaican man before this.
Okay.
So this is my
And
first experience.
okay, and let's do a little compare and contrast. What have you noticed are some differences between the Jamaican guy that you dated and per se an African American guy?
I will say, well, see, I'm married to my Jamaican husband, and so I don't know the difference. Is a big difference between us being married and the dating aspect. Um, but we'll do this. We'll start as far as dating. I will say it's just a lot of cultural differences. So Jamaican men expect women to be more passive. Um, American women are not passive. It doesn't react. An American man didn't expect that from me. Jamaican men, a lot of the women, it's the culture, especially the men that I am married to. A lot of the women maybe don't work or they're at home, they take care of the kids. That's not me. Like I said, the people I've dated before knew I had a career, they was okay with that. Like it was just different. So just culturally, things are different.
Okay. So let's back it up a little bit. How did you all meet?
I met him, it was at this sort of sports bar type place. I met him there actually. He was there with some friends, and I was there, and that's how we started. We met, and then we switched numbers and started hanging out after that.
Did you meet in Jamaica or meet here?
No, it was here. He was here. He actually was traveling back and forth. He worked here, then go back home, and then work here and go back home. So he was back and forth at the time.
Okay, so you met him at a sports bar in your home state, out with friends, and then you guys exchanged numbers and connected that way.
Yes.
Okay. So lead us up to, how did the dating process go with him being back and forth? Were you able to date a lot, or did you ever visit Jamaica, or how did that work out?
So when I met him, he was back and forth, but he had actually just moved here. So he was here permanently. And then after we started dating, he actually went to the military. And so he was here. And so as far as dating process, I was with him through like basic training and his AIT. So I was with him through all of that. And that, I mean, itself, just being a military wife, that's a whole nother aspect of our relationship. And so that in itself can be tough. But for me in particular, I've never been the type of person to have to be up under somebody. So it wasn't that bad, honestly. Because I always had my thing. I always worked. I was a grad school student at the time as well. So I was working full time. I was going to school full time. So we made it work. Like I say, especially when he had to be off during certain times before we got married.
And what did you guys, since you guys been married, have you guys had to travel within the military? Like, have you had to move to a different state or anything like that? Or you guys were pretty much stationed where you guys are at?
We've moved. I said I met him in Florida, and then he actually got stationed in Texas, and I was still in Florida. After we got married, then I moved with him to Texas, and then we moved to Georgia, and then he has moved again, but I'm actually staying behind to work on my licensure. And so he moved to Virginia right now, and he comes back and forth.
Okay, he comes back and forth. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so how was it dating? Do you feel like Jamaican men, or him in general, do you feel like they're romantic? Because that's a question a lot of people get, like, are they romantic, or, you know, what type of style do they do? Or do they show you love in a different type of way versus the way that we think of romanticism?
And I think that for mine, I think that he is. I think he tries. I think there's a lot of things like he may not know, because within just their culture, they have this stereotype of wanting to be all manly. And so not necessarily we're showing up for everybody, but, you know, just us, he would do things. Of course, he, even with around his friends, he would still, you know, buy me stuff or be all hug, cuddly, all that. So I don't think that was outside the ordinary, honestly, for any man. So I wouldn't say they're more romantic than any other man. I think there's some, you know, American men, other men too, who are just as romantic. I think it's just based off the person, honestly.
Right. Yeah, it can come down to individuality as well. Okay.
Yes.
And so what about like meeting family and stuff? Is his family here? Are they back home in Jamaica? Like, how did they accept you and all that?
Now that is a different story.
Okay. Let's go. Let's delve into it.
Now, I don't know where to start with this one. So no, they are not accepting. They don't like me. I'm not Jamaican, and I know that's the reason why.
And even now that you guys are married, that's an issue.
Married with children, they still act funky. That means they smile to your face, but I know things, the way they act, the way they treat, because he has other siblings, but his siblings were married to Caribbean people or Jamaican people, islanders. So of course they were treated differently than me, the American. And then Americans are just seen as like wasteful, like entitled. And so they just have perception of how Americans are. Like we, you know, think we rule everything, Jamaican culture, family-wise, I don't even know a nice way to put it. One of his friends told me, he said, Brooke, Jamaican people use their children as like an ATM. It's like a bank. They see that as an investment. So they're always beg. And they do. And that's one of the issues I have. They beg for everything. They feel like if their children over here, they're in America, that must mean they have money. They have to send it back. And I was
gonna touch on that. I was like, yes, culturally, if you're African, Caribbean, they typically, like, if you're the spouse, like, you automatically know that like that's going to, you know how we like say we got to pay our light bill, our rent bill, this, like I almost would categorize it as a bill in the sense that this money I know is going to go back to the family.
And that's ridiculous. And that's not what I agree with. I don't agree with that. If I can get up and I can go to work and I can do what I need to do, then you could do the same. I don't work to give my money away to other people. If someone needs help, that's totally different. But I don't believe in enabling people.
And I will say that's the American mentality, right? In America,
yes.
I mean, yes, we help each other out, but it's not something that we like regularly, like, oh, let me send money back. Now I will say, to be fair though, that maybe the jobs that we will have. So let's say, I mean, it kind of evens out, but let's say we're making $30 an hour, right? They may make, you know, $5 an hour. Like, I don't really know. That's like really low, but you would be surprised how much people make. And so it does seem like in America that we're making a lot of money, but we also pay, you know, $2,000 for rent, and like, you know, we got a car note, and we have all these different things. So I do think that people believe that we are making a lot of money, but they don't realize in America, we're in a rat race. I feel like the Caribbean islands, or, you know, Africa, sometimes like life is a lot slower, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know if there's always this need to kind of get, it seems like we're always working. Like, we don't even get a chance sometimes to even enjoy the fruit of our labor, because it's like, oh, we're always at work. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that is definitely an interesting thing that I'm sure when people listening to this portion of the video, they're going to have a lot of comments about whether or not it's right or wrong. But I do think it is a culture thing. So I guess for me, as if I were dating an African or a Caribbean, I guess it was something I would just expect, because I don't like to get between nobody and their mama, their siblings, like whatever, you know what I'm saying? Long as I'm cared for, long as I got food in myself. Now, don't send nothing back home if we ain't got nothing to eat. Our bills are paid. But if we have a little extra money, it's like, I just be like, okay, you know. So anyway, keep going.
And, you know, and to me, if you want to set aside an amount a month to give some, then that's fine. But that's not enough, because it keeps coming. So you can send 200, then you send 500, then guess what? They're not happy. We need more. And so you end up sending all these thousands. That's when it becomes a problem. And that's the problem. They're not happy with what you send. We even had a relative, I can say who, but was like, oh, well, I graduated from 100. You need to send more. Excuse me? You get what we give you. Right. But it's entitlement. They're so entitled to, like, we need these things. And that's one of the reasons why they don't like me, because I'm not like that. The other girls, they, you know, the other wives and husbands, they, you know, but that's their culture. They send stuff. They do this, they do that. No, man, I have 2 kids. You know, I'm going back to school. By the time, you know, no. Like,
and too, I think too, because they haven't even been as welcome as you think that they should, then you're really kind of like, well, you're not even welcoming, and we still like, have to send money. So it would be. What'd you say?
And like, my husband was deployed. They didn't check on me. They didn't check on me. They don't nothing. Like, even now with my family and my kids, they check on me. They buy my kids stuff. They don't buy my kids stuff. They don't check on my kids. But then you begging money? No, that's not how it works.
Right. So I think so. Yes. Though there is like a lot of conflict in there on both sides. So they see you as one way, you see you as one. I mean, they see you as another way. Instead of like kind of bridging that gap, like, because you guys are family at this point, like, my hope is for you that y'all can bridge the gap someday. And I don't know, and I'm pretty sure your husband probably feels like he's tug of war, you know what I'm saying? With his family and you. So my hope for you is that can be, you know.
Yeah. And the thing that he, because he has a lot of frustration with it too. And I think that he has started putting his foot down more and things like that as well. And I think that's another thing, because it's like, I guess if I wasn't here, then maybe, you know, he would just continue to do that. But he didn't see a lot of the stuff that's happening until we got together. And then just within the family itself, their culture, there's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of things that go on that he thinks is normal. That's not normal. Like I said, for instance, and he got over here, he's like, your parents give you money. Yeah, that's usually what parents do. He's never seen that before. He's always had people take from him. So he was shocked to see his parents give money. When I met him, he was, oh my goodness, how old were we? I had to count back. He was about 31, I believe. Yeah, he was 31. He had a birthday, I bought him a birthday cake. That was his first birthday cake. They've never bought him a birthday cake. Their birthday come around, he's expected to spend money. His birthday come around, he gets nothing. But all those things were normal to him. I had to explain to him that's not normal. That's not normal behavior, but that's what he's used to. So there's a lot of trauma, a lot of just worldviews and things that he has been exposed to that's not okay.
You're
And
like,
so I think
and
that
I,
he's
you know what I do find too, and again, I always got to reiterate that we're not speaking for everybody because people will come and say that, oh, you're speaking for everybody. No, we're not. But I do find a lot that I notice that birthdays seems to be more of like an American thing. Because when I talk to a lot of people from these different places, like growing up, like birthdays kind of was like, and I don't know if it was due to a lack of money or whatever. Because yeah, if we don't have a whole lot, I'm not thinking about buying a birthday cake and throwing a whole party. You know what I'm saying? So I'm wondering, is that it, or is that another part of the culture, or again, is that something that we do in America? Because you know we go all out for a first birthday party.
I know, right?
Right.
I
So
do think, like
imagine.
you said, I think it's just based off people because they do things for everybody else. I mean, their nephews have birthday parties, so if they're having a big old bash, they shut down the whole thing for that. So no, they have the money to do it. They're able to do it when they want to.
Okay. Okay.
But
And
it's
then
not everybody because
right, right,
there's some
right.
other friends that we have who are Jamaican as well, and they don't have that experience. One of our friends, um, her father gives her money, so her lifestyle, even though she was in Jamaica, was more of an American lifestyle. So she
Was
was
a
more
little
used to
bit
the things
different.
that I was used to.
Okay. And okay, let's switch to another topic in terms of like, so we always talk about, when we talk about marriage, there are a lot of things that we have to combine, like bills and like, you know, how to share stuff and different things like that. So from speaking of like perspective, like if somebody is married to someone, like how do you guys do it? Is it something that you're like, oh, we split bills, we combine them together? Like how is, if somebody's married, like what would you suggest that they do as a couple when it comes to like finances?
I think it's different for everybody. I really
Right.
do. I think you just have to figure out what works best for you guys. With us, we split things. Like I said, we're in the military, so they give us housing, money for
Right.
housing. So it makes sense for us to split housing because they give us money for it. So he takes care of that completely. And he does take care of most of the bills. And that's one thing I will say about him. And I have noticed this about Jamaican men in general. I say not comparing to any other race, 'cause I know some black men who do, 'cause my dad does it, but he takes care of us very, very well. I don't have to worry about anything. He's always been a great provider. And he does take care of most of the bills. So I will say that. But we do split some things. So some of the things I have are like the lower bills. But everything else, insurance, all that, of course, I'm on his insurance. But our mortgage, he pays for. I pay for the phone bill. It's that little stuff I handle, but all the big stuff he has.
Okay, and that's absolutely nice.
Yeah.
I can't say whether or not that should be the case or not, because like you said, different relationships for different folks. And so you mentioned
Right.
that you are a mother. How is his role as a father? Like how would you say he does with the children?
Oh, they are crazy about him, and he does really, really well. I still think that he's working on his patience, but I think part of that too is just him being in the military,
Oh yeah, they're a little
and being on his
strict.
shoulders. So I think that's a totally like that has a piece of it too. And then too, just some of the things and the love that some of the stuff that he didn't experience growing up, he's learning to do now. Or he's learning to be the father that he wanted. So but
Right.
I think that I mean he loves the kids. He does a great job. He helps get up throughout the night when they were younger. They're older now. Like I said, he's back and forth, but when he's here, he gets up. He dresses them. My mom I had an event for my mom, and so I went out of town, and he kept them the whole weekend by himself. So yeah,
Right.
he did
And that
really
gave
good.
that gave you a break too. So, but
Yeah.
have you been back to Jamaica with the kids?
Not with the children. We have just been. He's taken me. Like I've been, but we have not been with the children yet. We've talked about it, like I said, because of COVID and everything. That's the only reason we really haven't. And
Right.
then to just Jamaica itself not being very safe. We're
Okay.
kind of nervous about that too.
Okay. I want to touch on a subject that most people mention, and it was funny because I did another video and somebody was like, I want to know this question. So you know what they say about Jamaican men. Well, there's a lot of stereotypes about Jamaican men, okay? But we're gonna we're gonna talk about a couple of them, and one of those is fidelity or infidelity about Jamaican men. You always hear that they have multiple girlfriends, multiple this, multiple that. So is that something that is true, or do you think, again, it's more individual based, or like, what do you think on that? And then too, you guys are far apart, so how do you deal with that, like trust, basically, in terms of those topics?
Yeah. Again, I do think it is based off I think it's based off the person, but I will say it's common in just Jamaican culture itself. I know some very, very good Jamaican men, and then I know some real ratchet ones too. But I think again, it's the culture, honestly, because like my husband had issues with that when we were together. When we first started dating. And even after marriage, some stuff I'm looking into the side like, now what? Are people calling him or seeing messages and stuff? Like, we ain't doing this. And then even, like I said, his dad himself has a whole nother family. But that's
and then
something
everybody knows about it.
Everybody knows. But
And
that's
it's
common.
okay.
That's common in their culture. That's common. Like that was commonplace. And so I said a lot of things that he thought was normal growing up, like I said, is not normal.
Right.
But that's commonplace. That happens a lot. And I see a lot of Jamaican women. I had a friend tell me, like, growing up, you're just taught just to deal with it.
Yeah.
And they just deal with it. And I'm like, why?
Right. You're like,
yeah, like you don't have to.
right.
But that's what they're told. If he's taking care of you, he comes home to you. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And so a lot of them do that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of women with low self-esteem who allow themselves to be the mistress. So I do think it's a problem just within their culture itself, because I do see it a lot. And I said we've had issues with that. Yeah. And so I don't trust nobody 100% anyways.
Right. Everybody's right. Anybody and everybody's capable of doing anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So thank you for being transparent about it and letting us know that it has occurred, but it's something that you guys talked about and are working on. And then it's hard to break those generational curses. If he saw his father doing it, what's to stop him? You know what I'm saying?
Or just thinking like it's normal, and it's not.
Right, exactly. And it's hard to, dang it, what is their quote? Oh my God. Of course now I can't think of the quote. It's like something about grow up a boy so that they're not broken as a man or something like that. And it just reminds me of, if we start young doing correctly things, we can get through these things as adults, but it gets a little bit more difficult when these are already learned behaviors, right?
Oh yes.
So that's always very interesting. I guess I won't mention the other thing that people talk about when it comes to Jamaican men.
What's the other thing? Now you got me curious.
We mentioned in our other ones, Jamaicans are known to be very good sexually. Let's put it out there.
I do agree with that.
Okay. without delving too much into it, we'll keep it at I agree with that. Okay, so that's a good thing. That's cool. And it's funny because you met your husband here, and it would be interesting to talk to people, that have met their partner over in Jamaica. Like, what does that look like as well? That brings out about a whole nother thing. But bringing it back to culture, like, what do you think about like the food and like dancing, and like what are some of those things that you like absolutely enjoy or appreciate about his culture?
Definitely the food. Oh my goodness. And then just the fellowship when we do get together. I remember I used to go over there and they'll be speaking patois and I would have no idea what they're saying. But then they started teaching me, and they would teach me, and his friend would sit there and say, you know what they said? I was like, no. And then he would tell me. And so they just had it. That's how they taught me. And I still can't speak it, but I can understand.
Right.
And so, but
I would have to listen very closely when they start to talk, because it's so fast. You're like, okay, wait, what? And then some of the words mean different meanings. It was funny. I was watching a YouTube video about this lady who says Jamaican words, and like listen to her, but I'm like, oh, okay, I know if I go to Jamaica, that has a totally different meaning than what I would think it was. So yeah, that's cool that you're able to learn the language. And I love like jerk chicken. I know jerk chicken is a staple around here. I don't know if that's something that
it is. He can cook. That's not, my husband can cook some jerk chicken. He can cook period, but some jerk chicken, he throws down.
Okay.
Yeah, he can cook very well. With jerk chicken, I enjoy that. Beef patties, I love.
Oh yeah, I love it. What about cocoa bread?
He loves it. I'm not a fan, but I do like so he does the dumplings, and then the next morning we'll cut them up and fry them. Oh my goodness, they're so delicious.
I don't know if I've had the dumplings before, but I mean, I like dumplings, so that sounds good.
Well, you would like it then. Yeah, it is very good. And he makes the brown stew chicken for me. Yeah, so the food definitely. and
Yeah,
rice and peas.
I can't wait to go back. I only went on a cruise. It was funny because I was on a vacation on into Jamaica, and they say don't bring speechless
Uh,
and but
yeah,
hey, I was on a cruise.
you should have without
Right,
it.
so I need to go back to Jamaica at half fun. And what about the
Yes.
music? Do you like the reggae? Do you like all of that?
Yes. Yes, I love the music. Even like the clothing. He bought me like some bracelets, and so I do. I really enjoy all that, just the culture itself.
And then do
When
you?
you
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I say when you do go, make sure too you get on like the mainland, not just the touristy areas,
Right.
because that's where like the best food is when you go to the main areas. We
Yeah,
went to the shack. Oh my goodness, that was the best jerk pork I ever had.
I'm definitely more of a local person. I love to do the touristy thing, but I'm like, nah, I want to hang out with people from there because they know the best spots, they know the best places
Right.
to go. I have two more
Mhm.
questions for you. One of the questions is, how do you plan to incorporate like their culture, the Jamaican culture within your kids? Like, how do you plan to like make sure that they're like proud Jamaicans?
Well, we do when they do have certain holidays and things like that. We do try to keep that in mind. I think they're really young now, so they don't understand. But we do have like clothing, shirts. He plays making music. He talks to them, like I said, in Patois sometimes. Um, he talks. We have family members too. It's not necessarily his immediate family, but like his cousins. They come and visit us. They talk to them. We hear them. He has an auntie that I'm close to. Actually, I'm very close to one of his aunties, and so we spend a lot of time with her. And they love Jamaican food.
Okay, so
And first, my aunt was like, "That food is spicy." My babies eat spicy food. Like,
they like, okay, so that's good
yeah.
because I always love for people to keep the culture alive within their kids, so that that it doesn't stop at just the parents. Okay, so
It's
this was fun. This was a great time. So last final thoughts. If somebody were marrying a Jamaican or dating Jamaica, give us some last final words of advice for someone.
Make sure to set your expectations. Let them know what it is that you will accept, you won't accept. And if you say you're not going to do something, do not do it. If you say, if you do this, then this was going to happen, make sure it happened. So
Okay.
make sure, yeah, set firm foundation. Talk about those things too, like what you expect to happen within a relationship. Because we got married actually pretty fast. But make sure you take your time and have expectations too, as far as like with family, what you expect, what you don't expect, money wise, giving the money away, like how that's going to look and how it's going to look as far as raising your children. So just make sure that the expectations are set from the beginning. So that way, when something happens, there's no surprise. Like you guys already have it worked out or you already know what's going to happen.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was great. And I'm pretty sure people can pick up some nuggets from it. And this is wonderful. So thank you so much, Kayla. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this interview with us.
You are welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.